Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining in for today's session, wherein we are going to talk about an important area for streamlining the vendor onboarding process and how you can manage your suppliers effectively and help to drive efficiency across your organization and help the procurement and the sourcing department. So I'm Maddie, and I'm going to be the speaker, and with me, Sunil, who's the SVP Products at Avenir, and John Vistaccio, who's going to cover the demo for today's session. So before I quickly start, I just want to set some of the context in terms of uh, where are we heading, meaning especially in terms of the procurement, because COVID was a major event or a trigger event which has really transformed and has challenged the procurement division to make it more resilient. They are looking to make it more stabilized and how they can fulfill the agility demand. Due to which a lot of volatility has been created for the supply chain side, which has created additional vendor management challenges. So supply chain volatility as at all-time high, and a normal supply chain is unlikely in 2023. So unless you have a robust vendor management solution that meets your supply chain needs while unlocking efficiency and saving for your business. So that's what we are aiming, and that's what we are seeing to come up. But coming to the vendor management aspect, there are different arenas where a vendor management plays a critical role. So I would just like Sunil to share his thoughts and how the vendor management domain has been changing.
Yep. Thank you, Maddie, for that introduction and for kicking us off. I hope everyone can hear me clearly. I'm Sunil Masan, joining from California, head of product here at Avenir. Yeah, so when you think about vendor management, I mean, I'm sure everyone has their own definition of vendor management. The way I think about vendor management is it's a collection of processes. It's a collection of processes that allow you to manage vendors across the entire procurement process or the source to pay process. And of course, I'm not going to go read everything that's on the slide, but it covers everything from identifying and selecting vendors to onboarding and training them, managing agreements with them, managing risk and performance with vendors and suppliers. So yes, it covers that entire. It's a group of processes, but you know. Um, so managing vendor relationships and performance, we talked about that, managing obligations as well, managing deliverables, quality and other requirements that would help your business. All of these become a part of vendor management. Now, in addition to that, in my mind, it includes the management of the engagement experience as well that you have with your vendors. And vendor management in my mind should aim at delivering that superior, simple, collaborative engagement experience across every source to pay sub process, an experience that will make it easy, super easy for the vendor to work with your organization. Maddie, we can move on to the next slide, yeah, in the interest of time. And let's talk a little bit more now about vendor management challenges and what we hear in the field. We've been talking to a number of our customers, our prospects. We've spent a lot of time in this space, and again, just because vendor management covers a whole spectrum of processes, we hear challenges around vendor management across all of those processes, of course. And from onboarding challenges, i.e., just simply collecting all the necessary information from suppliers, performing due diligence on those, and going back and forth with suppliers to even vet them out to become a registered vendor, that itself is a challenge. Vendor management, like I said, it includes that engagement experience. So we hear a lot around, providing constant status updates to vendors. Vendors, someone wise just told me that vendors, they're only interested in two things: how do they work with you, and two, how do they get paid? And they'll keep bombarding you for payments, or checking up on their invoice status and all. So in my mind, providing a superior engagement experience, even for that invoice and payment status visibility, that is also a part of vendor management. And well, I was going to jump into what an ideal solution would be, but that is another challenge we hear about. We hear about managing vendors post the onboarding process. Things change. What happens 6 months down the road, a year down the road, when you need new compliance certifications from the vendor? You need them to sign a COVID release form, because everyone's now going back to work. You need to you need to communicate with them in bulk. How do you handle that entire vendor engagement portion as well? So that piece also, we've heard our customers and prospects identify challenges in that area as well. And then, of course, the obvious items around collaboration, or around performance obligations, around agreement collaboration, that's focused around agreement negotiation, and so on. Yeah. So with that, Maddie, we can move to looks like it's time for a poll. Maddie, I'll let you go ahead and announce a poll.
Yeah. So with Sunil, thank you first of all for sharing the areas where we are seeing traction from the vendor management perspective. So I'm just running a quick poll to understand in terms of what's your biggest pain area with the vendor management. So I would also like to introduce John, because he's been talking to a lot of customers and helping them to solve their challenges. So John, what do you think? And Sunil, you also do chip in, but what do you think? What will be the biggest challenge out of this four? Is it going to be about onboarding vendors? Is it about the documentation or information management? Is it about keeping up with the inquiries, payments, because payments is a bigger pain? Or is it about the obligation or the performance of the vendor? What do you feel?
Yeah, thank you, Maddie. And hey, everyone, nice to meet you. I'm John, a solution consultant here with Avenir. I'll be giving the demo in a little bit as well. But absolutely, when I'm meeting with customers, when I look at these four options, I expect onboarding vendors will be probably one of the largest voted for. And that's what we hear very often is today, customers are coming with pretty complex workflows and approval processes and requirements around documentation, maybe risk reviewing or validating the vendor with other third-party systems. So the ability for a tool like ours to put a little bit of a guardrail on that workflow and then automate where possible is something we are hearing a lot.
Great. So the polls are in. Let me just quickly share the result.
I guess I was wrong.
John, yeah. Our audience always ends up surprising us.
I love it.
And and I can see why. I mean, I'm sure many organizations, they do have at least some process to whether there may be some efficiency gaps, but I would imagine they do have some process to onboard them. But then on an ongoing basis, how do they continue to manage that supplier information centrally? That is interesting that has come up as the largest pain point here. Okay, we can move on. So let's talk about, let's double click. We talked about vendor management as a whole. We talked about what that covers. We talked about the vendor management challenges, and now we'll double click. Let's talk about, vendor onboarding process gaps. By the way, from the poll results, the poll was a bit tricky because both the first item and the second item in my mind falls, vendor onboarding and document exchange. It falls under a common bucket of onboarding plus supplier information management on an ongoing basis. I mean, the audience is smarter than us. They know that onboarding is never complete until you also have a way to manage that information on an ongoing basis. So yeah, let's talk about some of the vendor onboarding, just specifically with respect to vendor onboarding, some of the process gaps. Largely, it's about the lack of processes or inconsistent processes across groups, across departments, across internal departments. Clearly, it is, very often, the left arm in an organization doesn't know what the right arm is doing or which vendors, another department has contracted with. Are they already approved or not? That's clearly been identified as a pain point. Conducting due diligence on all the vendor information, that entire verification process, that is also that has been identified as a big challenge. As a gap, that they're not that organizations are not able to perform all the due diligence effectively and in time to proceed with actually procuring and engaging with the vendor. Maddie, we can move to the next slide as well. This slide again talks about some of the vendor onboarding gaps, specifically the automation gaps. We pulled some statistics again from IOFM and other sources, and you can see the amount of hours it takes to go and set up a vendor on an upfront basis manually versus handling it in some automated manner. And then on the right hand side, you'll see the amount of time it takes to actually verify all of that, the information collected. For example, supplier address verification, background checks, verification of tax IDs, and verification against different types of sanctions lists, and so on. The effort involved there it looks like it's pretty steep, and there is clearly an opportunity here to automate those verification checks as well and bring in some efficiency here. Yep. With that, Maddie, we can move on to the next slide. So yeah, so in everyone's minds, what does what should a world-class onboarding and collaboration facilitate? What should a solution that what should a world-class solution that simplifies onboarding and collaboration cover? And as you would imagine, it should cover the upfront onboarding of the supplier, including all of the including at least some of the key verification checks. It should cover ongoing supplier information management. It should provide a connected vendor management experience. Now, connected here, it does not only mean connected across connectivity between. This is important, actually. It does not mean only mean a connected experience across between the buyer and the supplier, or the procurement team, or the vendor management and the vendors. It also means connectivity across departments, internal departments, and then it also means connectivity across multiple systems. Everything may not, everything, all your source to pay processes may not be enabled on the same platform, but that platform that is delivering an onboarding and collaboration experience for vendor management should be able to talk to other systems to bring in relevant information and provide that single connected experience to the vendors. And then, of course, other capabilities like like solid, I mean, security is obviously super important here because, you know, sensitive information is being exchanged between, across between the buyer and the supplier. So you know, the ability to audit as well, the ability to maintain an audit trail, the ability to manage security, the ability to go back in time and look at that audit trail for all the due diligence that has been performed, all the communication that has been recorded between the buyer and the supplier, the ability to the ability to record again all the verification checks that have been performed, that becomes super important. Not only for to adhere to you know to governance requirements and other laws that exist, but disputes happen. Vendors, they don't always perform, and then you want to be able to go back and look at that entire audit trail, right? So yeah, I mean, I just highlighted a few examples, but yes, we can move on to, wow, looks like we have another poll here.
Yes, Sunil.
Maria,
So
yeah,
this
go ahead.
basically double downs on the S2P processes. So the first goal was to cover or get an idea about what are the common challenges. And based on the responses which we received, there are a couple of our audiences, they are already using they have vendor onboarding systems, but in the entire integrated experience or the end-to-end experience, where are they feeling, in terms of where they can solve the problem with the vendor portals. So yeah, the answers are coming in. But I think in the first poll, John had responded. So Sunil, you were on mute. But yeah, what's your take? Where you think the audience will be giving their major answers?
Yeah. So my sense is that um, I mean, buying organizations, they do understand the importance of collaboration, and they have some form of portal capability available to collaborate, at least on the purchasing side. That's my understanding. And at least so if I were to vote, I would say on the sourcing side, especially with the RFP collaboration, sending out proposals to multiple suppliers, inviting them to bid. I've seen buying organizations, they do have a portal solution over there, and of course vendor onboarding as well. Yeah, John, do you want to take a guess, or? Okay,
No,
we'll look
there we go.
at,
Yeah.
okay. This is interesting. So it is pretty spread out, and yes, this is interesting. So collaboration across vendors is not handled using portals. So those organizations are probably experiencing some level of pain here. Yeah, I mean, vendor onboarding, sourcing, and RFP and contracting, there is, and for invoice payment visibility, looks like there is some level of portal capability available here. Okay. So yeah, let's talk about Avenir and how Avenir can help with some of the gaps and challenges around around vendor onboarding, vendor collaboration, and vendor management in general. So Avenir, we are built on the ServiceNow platform, and we are focused on building products that enable enable source to pay processes. Our products cover, on the sourcing side, our products cover RFP management with our RFP flow product, contract management, contract obligation management, and vendor flow, which primarily covers vendor onboarding and supplier information management. And then we also have a solution for invoice processing that AP teams as well as other departments like legal can use. We are spread across the globe. We have a customer presence across many geographies, as you can see. And again, what we aim at doing, I mean, we take pride in saying that our products, the value that we deliver, we clearly help boost efficiency through collaboration portals, through process standardization. We help reduce overspend by again, invoice flow is a great example how we help reduce overspend by actually helping verify invoice submitted invoices from vendors using AI. We lower contract risk in multiple ways. Again, AI helps a lot with contract contract ingestion from third-party paper, with obligation extraction, and we're working on also on capabilities around contract risk detection, again using AI. And of course, as you would imagine, we help improve relationships as well. Between buyers and suppliers. Ultimately, you do want your suppliers to be successful. You do want them to perform because your business depends on that. So we recognize that relationship piece is super important. And this is end to end. Really, this is what we do. We do, again, in the vendor management space, this is what we do. We provide a 360-degree connected vendor management experience built on top of ServiceNow. What we have done is we've actually built our own, again, using ServiceNow's capabilities, we've built that portal capability that allows buyers to collaborate with suppliers to automate and enable the onboarding process, and take that collaboration again to the next level with ongoing document and message exchange, with collaboration across POs and invoices, management of vendor obligations. And then finally, we're looking to evolve our solutions and to help our customers evolve as well with reports and insights into various source to pay processes. And with that, I wanted to keep all of the keep all of the thought leadership and talk around vendor management, vendor onboarding challenges tight. And I want to hand it over to John to wow us with some snippets of vendor flow in action.
Great. Thank you, Sunil.
Sure.
So yeah, our goal here is to give you a high-level overview of our vendor management solution. And then certainly if there's any questions, please add them to the chat or to the Q&A, and we'll look to cover those throughout or right after. So coming into the application, the person I'm logging in as right now is what we would call a vendor manager or supplier manager typically. And when they come into the application, they're going to be presented with a list of both potential suppliers and onboarded suppliers. Now, the vendors that they see here can be limited based off of their role or their permission. So it's very easy to control if maybe this user can only see the vendors they own, or if they're able to potentially see all the vendors that we currently have within the application. And then from here, I can review any of these vendors that are in our potential supplier list. The way that these records were created could have been done as easily as one of these vendor managers hitting new supplier right from here and kicking off that onboarding process. It could have also been kicked off from a parallel workflow. So oftentimes we'll see when it comes to contracting, if a user submits a contract with a vendor that's net new and doesn't exist, how that could be the trigger or the event that kicks off this vendor onboarding workflow that needs to go on in parallel, or likewise, any other process that you may be doing that in your world, you're like, oh, if someone requests this type of transaction, we would also want to have that vendor onboarding kicked off in parallel. So I think the takeaway, there's a lot of different ways that this list of potential suppliers can come in. And the last way is self-service. So in some cases, we've seen that maybe you have a website that vendors can just come in off the street, and there's a button on the website to say, hey, apply to be a new vendor. And that could also kick off the creation of one of these records. All right. So now coming in here, I can review any of these, click into them, get a sense for what information we have. Obviously, this is a very simplified demo environment, but here you can envision any of all of the data points that are important to your business that you want to make sure are captured. This is where we can also pull in data from some third-party services if you need to validate and verify certain information. And then on the right side, we can see the different, in this case, categories of supplier information that we're requesting. And this list here as well is completely configurable by you, but these are some common items that we do see customers look to capture for their vendors. And we can get visibility as to what the vendors already provided or has been uploaded and completed versus what is still outstanding within here. So I know one of the poll questions is around document management. So this is just a way that you can visually understand what information we need to capture for each of our vendors, and of that, what has already been submitted right from within here, or if need be, upload on their behalf. If there was a scenario where maybe you were just emailed a document that you need to assign to a certain vendor record, all that could be done right from within here. Okay. Yeah, and then as well from either a list of potential suppliers or onboarded suppliers, you can come here, maybe select them all. And I think this was the scenario Sunil shared, is where, maybe now all vendors that need to come on site need to complete a vendor or a COVID release form. So you can come here, select the vendors, and then select from a list of questionnaire templates. So it's very easy to configure a brand new questionnaire template and we'll show you a couple examples next of what those could look like. And here we just have an example of a COVID release form. So this is just another way that you can alert and send out additional info requests or notifications more on an ad hoc basis. Okay. And then if I wanted to go ahead and send out that onboarding request where we want this vendor to receive an email that's going to provide a link for them to go to a portal where they can upload some of this documentation and complete any other items that are required. What I would do is from here, select all of those vendors that I want to kick it off to, or potential suppliers, and then just hit new onboarding request, where now I'm going to be presented with that same list. Maybe I have an onboarding questionnaire. All right. And then at this point, these contacts are receiving an email notifying them, thank you for applying to be a vendor with us. Please click the link below to complete your onboarding. And then when they click that link, they're going to be brought to a portal similar to this. And of course, as I mentioned before, everything can be modified and updated to match your branding, your logo, the look and feel that you have. And likewise, the actions. So in our demo environment, we give these users the ability to upload some of that info. So I can click, and very similar look and feel to what we showed before. But you can obviously have some variability. So maybe there's data points that you're tracking for this vendor, but when the vendor reviews their own record, maybe they don't get that visibility to all of that data. But we can see in this case, they've already completed a lot of the information and uploaded everything that we've asked of them. And now they can just go ahead and review and complete your onboarding request. And this is going to present them that questionnaire that had been selected, where they can come in and fill out all of the required information. So I can come in here, we can see the different sections that we had for our questionnaire. Go ahead and expand all of these. And I'm not going to complete this just in essence of time, but I think the key thing is we can have any type of question. So we can have one like this where they have to maybe free text in a ton of information. You notice for any question, they can upload a document. So if you had scenarios where for a certain question or an upload was required, all of that can be enabled. We can do things with tables. So for instance, here, if there is a table that you needed them to complete in this type of structure, in this case, it's for references, that could all be configured. So I think that's a little bit of a unique feature we offer, is the ability to have these question type or grid type questions, uploads. Yeah, so very dynamic. And you notice that beneath each section, there's a mark complete. So what we can enable is the ability for these vendors to be on, complete 80% or 50% of it, and then come back at a later date and complete the rest. So it doesn't need to be a complete at once activity for these suppliers either.
Or ask someone else from their team, right, to complete complete another section.
Absolutely. And then they can also post and ask questions. So if there was a level of QA that you needed to enable from here, where maybe they're unclear with a question or just need to submit a follow-up more informally, they can comment right here and post it. And on the back end, the assigned vendor manager or vendor management team will get alerted that this comment has been submitted and can come back, review it, get an answer back to the vendor right away. So yeah, and Sunil, anything else should I add here before I come back and go through kind of reviewing a completed questionnaire and moving that forward?
Yeah. So, so far, I hope, the audience saw what John demonstrated. He showed us, a centralized place where supplier information can be managed. And it can be managed in, that information can be directly managed in that supplier information section, as well as facilitated through an onboarding request or an additional information request that can be sent out to multiple suppliers at the same time. John also showed us the richness that we support, both in the supplier information management section, where we allow you to capture tax IDs, we allow you to upload tax forms, we allow you to upload insurance and security forms and certifications and so on and so forth, and also capture start dates and end dates or issue and expiry dates. We showed you rich structures like a tabular structure that is actually a really cool feature that we have, because that can help with a wide variety of use cases, like educational qualifications. List all your board of directors with the number of years they've been on the board. List out all your prior work experience going back 5 years. List out 5 years. List out all your addresses in the last 5 years. So all of that can be facilitated through a grid structure. The beauty of capturing all of this information as metadata is that it then allows you to use that metadata, for example, a tax ID or an address, and perform an automated check or use integration to an external an external service like a payment like a bank information or a payment verification service, and perform that automated check. Capturing all of this as metadata also then, in the interest of time, we won't show you everything, but it also allows you to then track, track expiry dates, have the system automatically go and chase vendors, send them reminders to go and upload their new tax forms for the upcoming year, or new insurance coverage proof for the next year, and so on. Yep. John, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Sunil. Yeah, so now what I wanted to do is just toggle over to an onboarding request that has now been completed. So moving hats over to that vendor manager once again. And now from within here, we can open up all of the answers, get a sense for what the vendor has completed or uploaded. And you notice beneath each section, I also have an option now as this vendor manager to ask for more info. So if I review their answers, maybe something was unsatisfactory, I can request some additional info from that vendor where they'll get an alert. I can also assign out this section internally. So maybe this was our IT or cloud security review. So this needs to go to our IT security team or our chief security officer. You could assign out relevant sections to the correct business units or teams internally as it pertains to that content. And then likewise on the right side, we can also see any of the comments that have been submitted by the vendor and from myself, the internal party, the internal vendor manager. So just getting a little more of that informal audit trail. We obviously have the formal audit trail as well behind all of this workflow and what's been completed, when it was completed by. So that allows us to do a level of granular reporting for you on the process. So understanding cycle times, how long it takes for average vendors to get through the life cycle, where it maybe differs, where potential bottlenecks may exist. Those are all types of reports that we can get out of an application like this. And then once the vendor goes through the life cycle and is considered active, they will then get access to what we call just the active vendor portal. So what I showed you previously was an example of a vendor that's going through the onboarding process. And now what I want to come to and show is a vendor that's now been through the life cycle. So it looks somewhat similar. The only difference now being is there's more actions, as you can see below, that this vendor can get to. So this is more showing the art of the possible, where they can still come and update relevant documentation. As Sunil mentioned, we're able to alert and task off of your vendor record. So, 90 days before their insurance certificate expires, or based off of whatever criteria you have, the vendors can be alerted to upload, where they'll be brought back here to upload that newest documentation in more of an automated fashion, which is a big ROI factor for many customers. They'll be able to submit an invoice, view contracts, or any other data. So if there's other data that you have that's relevant to vendors that you think it would be helpful for them to get visibility to via a portal like this, we can certainly make that available. But these are just the common ones that we've come across. Obviously, the ability to view or request a new contract is very valuable. Submitting an invoice or viewing data related or even dashboards. So if I come into one of these, as this vendor now, I can see all of my invoices that I have on file. I can see some of the purchase orders that have been submitted. So just giving a little bit more of that self-service and likewise ability to submit a new invoice. So yeah, that really covers the high level overview. And as Sunil said, we really focused on that vendor manager or supplier manager persona, how that user can review both a list of potential and onboarded suppliers, request additional information, queue new onboarding requests. We showed how you can provide portals to both vendors that are in flight of the onboarding process and have already been onboarded, where they can have a level of self-service to submit questionnaires, submit documents, or maybe even in the future, submit invoices and review contracts. So hopefully this was helpful to you. And yeah, I'm going to turn it back over to the team.
Yeah,
Yep,
thanks.
thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just pretty excited with the demo.
Yeah, thank you, John, for the great quick demo. You hit upon pretty much all of the key, most of the value, most of the impactful capabilities that folks would be looking for in a vendor management, onboarding, and collaborations solution. And so folks, if you're wondering how do you get started, I would encourage you to reach out to us, to visit our website, download our data sheet. Of course, this presentation will also be shared with you after the webinar, and we'd love to hear from you soon. Yeah.
Great. So with that, yeah, so there was one question that Sunil, already answered. So there are a couple of questions, in the interest of time, I'll be just taking a couple of few. So first is about the implementation cycle. So what is the implementation cycle duration one can expect with the Avenir vendor flow solution?
Okay, so I know I'm kind of giving a politically correct answer. The answer is it depends, the number of suppliers, the number of onboarding templates, the number of buying categories that you might have that would lead to different onboarding packages. But the reality is that, in order to go and set up a customer on vendor flow, this should be really quick, as little as 2 weeks. It is a ready to go solution where, with minimal training, you'll be able to go and set up your own onboarding package and then go and send it out to suppliers. Of course, we'll have to have additional discussions around integrations, around, where does your vendor master currently reside, and so on and so forth. That might add to that time, but we've seen, customers, they would be, we believe, we can get customers live in as little as 2 weeks, and then it could go up to a few months as well.
Great. Thanks, Sunil. Next question which we have is about because we are talking about vendor management, vendor risk management. So does our solution do the same thing as ServiceNow's vendor risk management?
Oh, this is a great question. It's a trick question. No, ServiceNow is our partner. Vendor risk management that ServiceNow has is a part of their overall GRC solution capability. And Avenir solutions do help mitigate risk. Contract management, contract management is a risk management process. Vendor onboarding through automation of information exchange and automation of some of the due diligence and verification, we help manage risk. But no, we don't manage a risk register. We don't do a full end-to-end risk assessment, which ServiceNow's VRM tool would do, and then come out with the risk mitigation steps. Some of those mitigation steps can be handled in Avenir. So the way I see it is that Avenir's vendor onboarding and supplier information management and other solutions, they're all complementary to ServiceNow's vendor risk management. We can for various components of risk, we can provide input into the entire end-to-end vendor risk picture that ServiceNow provides. And at the same time, if there are risk mitigation recommendations that emerge from ServiceNow's vendor risk management, those mitigation steps can be handled. For example, okay, build a contract with these clauses, because these clauses mitigate risks that were identified in ServiceNow's vendor risk management solution. That would get handled in Avenir. Yeah.
Great.
Hope that answers the question. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Sunil. Next question which we have is on the various vendor types. So, for example, the question is, if a person or if an organization has different types of vendors, or main variations in the vendor types in the onboarding forms and the workflows. So Wouldn't that, so will that affect the overall cost and the implementation timeline?
Yes. So to be fair, there will be some variation in the implementation timeline, but again, through proper analysis and upfront upfront requirements gathering and design, we can modularize this. So we allow onboarding to happen in chunks. We allow information requests from suppliers to happen on a piecemeal basis. So across all of these different vendor types or buying categories, there will likely be certain common things you would ask regardless of the buying category. And then there would be information like about the products and services and quality checks that happen on that buying category. Those types of questions would likely vary, or those forms that you send out would likely vary. So we'll be able to abstract out commonalities and just create one or two common onboarding templates, and then for all the variations we'll be able to we would be able to handle that. And again, you can have as many variations as you want. Our entire model, our implementation model is, we want this to be a self-serve model, both for our customer, i.e. the buyers or internal teams within the buying organization, as well as on the supplier side. So during the implementation itself, we will get you familiar and trained on how you can set up additional onboarding packages for all the different variations you have. So on an ongoing basis, if your information requirements change, you don't have to come back to Avenir. You'll be able to do that on your own.
Great. So
okay.
There are a couple of questions, but I think I'll take this as the last question.
Sure.
So this is regarding, what if some company is already using their own system or their own internal system, or if they are outside the ServiceNow platform? So how can, in that scenario, how can vendors collaborate across processes handled by their internal systems? How that scenario works out for us.
Okay, so I'm not. Okay, I think the way I'll read this question is that you have some systems already that handle some of the source to pay processes, and how can vendors collaborate across those processes because they're not on the ServiceNow platform? So like I mentioned, because Avenir is built on the ServiceNow platform, we inherit some really solid capabilities, specifically integration capabilities with external systems. ServiceNow has a integration hub with specialized connectors or spokes already available to other systems like SAP, Oracle, and so on. And we'll be able to easily integrate with those systems and bring in relevant data. For example, the actual payment, payment on an invoice. We are not a payment processing system. You might be doing this in your ERP or some other financial system, but your vendors want visibility into that payment status. So that information we can easily bring back into Avenir using ServiceNow's platform capabilities and expose out in the vendor collaboration portal. Who knows, you may want your vendors to have visibility into your inventory. Now, once again, we are not a warehouse management system or an inventory management system, but whatever that system is, information can easily be integrated, sometimes even in real time into ServiceNow, and that visibility can be provided to your vendors through the Avenir collaboration portal, Avenir vendor flow.
Yeah, great. Yeah, so I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, John, and thank you, Sunil, for providing us a brief overview and the idea about the vendor collaboration and how Avenir vendor flow plus the various different source to apps which Avenir offers can help maximize the efficiency and help the various procurement function in the organization. So thank you everyone for your time, and have a safe and have a great day. And do look out for another set of email blasts, and visit our website and the social media to get to know more about the next webinar or the next session, which we are going to focus on the invoicing aspect that's on the invoice flow product. So thank you again. Thanks, Sunil, and thanks, John.
Thank you, Maddie. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Bye-bye.